continuing to hear from the leadership team. And I believe that is the last slide on this. So please, if you any questions, comments, any other information I can provide or insights.
Questions for LaKoya? Ready? Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, LaKoya. I just want to kind of dive into a little more of what Councilman Pastor asked early in this presentation regarding management and supervisors feeling some stresses. We are in stressful times. We all understand that, and they're very challenging times especially when we're providing public service and things like that. But are there further thoughts about how we can help these supervisors navigate through these stresses? I don't know that we can make the stresses go away, but are there tools that we can provide them to guide them and through navigating through these difficult times?
Oh, certainly. Yes. Yes, Councilman, thanks for asking that question. There certainly are, different things that you can do. It really is contingent on what are the drivers of those stressors. So that would be an area I think that would be beneficial to drill down a little bit more into. And maybe anecdotally, perhaps the administration already knows that. That's very possible. But if there isn't clarity around what's driving those stressors, is it just volume of work? There's a great deal of insight in the comments. Perhaps that gives the insights that you need. Is it a staffing issue, et cetera? That's going to help you figure out what your strategies are to overcome those things. It could be trying to, you could, if there is a way to offer, more flexibility with work schedules, if there's a way to maybe have a hybrid where some positions are conducive to working remotely, if there's a way to offer alternate schedules. Are there stretch assignment opportunities where some of the work can come off of the plate of certain individuals and go to others who are up and coming that would serve everyone well, including the organization, because it will provide exposure and opportunities for growth for others. So there's a number of ways to help alleviate some of those things, but it really starts with pinpointing what are the drivers of those stressors. What is it that they may not be getting, or that they may be, getting that maybe needs to come off of their plates or be adjusted in some other way.
Great, thank you.
You're most welcome.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. LaKoya, in regards to communication, excuse me, and transparency and getting information to all employees, what would you say that we could do better, I guess, to fix that?
For what can the city do to fix the issue around communication and transparency? Yes, also a good question. Thank you, Councilman Leatham. Generally, there are a couple of things that can be done. Communications, the number one is the frequency. So looking at how frequently are communications going out and what are the modalities that are being used, because not everyone's going to read email. Some people are visual learners, some people are auditory. So changing the modalities. So sometimes email, if you have a newsletter, if you have a home page when employees log into their computers, things of that nature. So changing the delivery method. Also kind of identifying your different stakeholder groups is a really helpful thing based on the topic. So in other words, some groups of employees may only have a need to know, only have a need for awareness. Other groups of employees, depending on the topic, may have action that they need to take. They may need to know more. And so when you're communicating, if you can have a sense of the different groups you're communicating to, then you can adjust the communication to make sure that it's providing the right level of information. So in other words, you may have something that needs to go out to all employees, but most employees only need to have awareness of it. They only need to have a working familiarity with it. But yet maybe your managers and supervisors need to take action. They may have some accountability. So their communication needs to be more comprehensive. Maybe you need to send 2 or 3 of them as reminders. Maybe you need to require something else, action on their part, to confirm that they got the information. So crafting a communication strategy that identifies who are the different kind of what we call stakeholder groups or different groups of people will help you accelerate that process. And then also, it's not that you're creating 5 different communications to go out to 5 different groups. You're creating one master communication and you're just parsing out the information you need to go to different groups. That helps accelerate it as well, and it helps to avoid creating a lot of extra or unnecessary work. So you kind of front load it by doing this work so that you can accelerate progress on the back end and get the communications rolling out a little bit more frequently. There are a number of ways you can do it. Videos are a great way as well. Videos from your leadership that go out on a periodic basis, a regular cadence of those, especially you can kind of brand them around employee surveys. So maybe if you don't have the capacity now to do what I just mentioned, maybe just videos become the format for anything that has to do with an employee survey related update. So that employees are, it kind of socializes that concept. So employees know when there's a video that comes from the manager, the city manager, that it's going to have to do with progress or something that has to do with the employee survey. So there are a number of different ways that certainly, we can talk through later. Manager Jepson and I can certainly do that later if that makes sense. But there are a number of different ways to be able to increase the transparency and the frequency.
If I could.
Go ahead, Jess.
You've mentioned focus groups. What would that entail? What does that look like? I mean, I know you have to identify areas of focus, but once you have those, what does focus group look like?
Focus groups can come in a number of different ways. I know that they ran them last year, so that might be something Manager Gibson you want to speak to. But focus groups typically will be based on the categories of feedback that came in. So, for example, the manager supervisor group, because we saw some significant movements there, some kind of areas of concern that might constitute one focus group, is bringing them together. And generally, we recommend crafting out your questions ahead of time so that it can be a structured meeting progress. You can ask specific questions, but it's open enough that people can speak freely and provide their input. So there are some kind of structural things you want to do at the outset, formatting wise, but largely it's based on, again, what those categories were, and you build the groups around those groupings, either by job role or tenure or whatever it is. And you can combine them too if the groups are too small. Combine them to one topic.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
LaCoy, I have a few questions. Just following up with what Jesse also said about communication. You talked about trust and favoritism and fairness and equity. As we put these in categories, I would think those would be high priority to address in this, the initial year. Is there a measurement to measure the results? If we do, how am I saying this? If there is a plan for improvement on communication, is there a way to measure the results 6 months down the road, a year, or by the next survey?
Generally, it depends on a couple of things. Generally, yes, the survey serves as a great baseline because you're going to be asking the same questions, and you can see if you move the needle. So that's kind of the short answer to see, but that's on an annual basis, basically. If you wanted to see if progress was being made on an interim basis, it really depends on what specific actions that you're going to take in response to the survey. So if there are, you may put something in place, a new plan or program, or I know you've got, some compensation system adjustments that are coming. So based on what those things are, then you can kind of measure, you can put some measurements in place to determine what has changed. In terms of employee sentiment or perspective, that's something I would suggest waiting until the survey comes out. Now, it's not saying you can't ask questions along the way, but just in terms of actual formal kind of how are you seeing the needle move, that would come in the form of the next survey.
Okay. And then one last question for clarity, and I think this be maybe addressed to you and to Paul also. just so our employees understand, we have an internal HR, which is Pam at this point, mainly, I think, doing with the benefits. But just so our staff understands, our employees and even our council, that your group was hired to be an independent, source that employees could contact you or council or staff if there was a question, so there was an independent opinion given on the outside, correct?
And Mayor, yes, is that a question for me?
Yes. And Paul, yeah. Yeah, for you at this point, what your services cover all employees in the city?
Yeah, we continue to remain a resource. Absolutely, yes. We generally have been working kind of behind the scenes, if you will, on different issues as they arise. We have been continue to work closely with Pam in the manager's office. If employees need to contact us, certainly we continue to be a resource. Absolutely.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, Pam does more than benefits. I mean, she is a full service HR person, but she is just one. You know, and there's a lot of things that go on HR that you know we strive for, but they're core situations. But no, LaCoya has been there. We pick up the phone. We try to engage LaCoya early, make sure that we're taking the right path, and looking at things, and just kind of she helps us put things in perspectives on that. And but anybody employed by the city who is asked to wants to reach out and speak to LaCoya, you know, they are available to do that, and we can set that up, and we have it, I think, a couple times. But Pam has done a wonderful job of being there for people, and so that's been helpful.
Yeah, I agree that Pam does an excellent job. You know, I've contacted her numerous times. Whatever, I guess my point is that I just want to make sure that our employees feel comfortable contacting an outside source. That was why we hired the LaCoya firm, that if there isn't, is her number, is her availability passed on to all employees, or do they have to go to their supervisor to get contact information?
Usually they reach out to Pam to get the information for LaCoya. But
So they would have to go to Pam to get that information.
at this point, yes, I believe so. I mean, we can you put something out and advertise that LaCoya is available if that's council's wishes.
That's why we hired him.
So,
Comment?
All the employees are doing
Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, anytime we have any company or any organization goes out and has a survey from employees, you're gonna get a whole list of different, responses. Actually, I think it's a pretty good report this time around. There's a lot of good information, but when you do these surveys, probably the number one concern that you see in these is communication.
Oh, yeah.
And to me, it's a two-way street. You know, I know, working 35 years in the mines, you go to a bulletin board in your department and there's all kinds of information that's available that a lot of employees don't even realize is available. So, you know, I would suggest that, you know, we might put some of that kind of information out in each of the departments. I know it's a little extra work and everything.
oh no, we've developed we tried to manage a department bulletin board that has all the postings and information. We had COVID information, and we can easily put something in all the departments, not only an email, but so for those people just walking by, you know, that if anybody feels a need, they can reach out to LaCoya.
Yeah, it was good to see all of the improvement, but the ones where we lost points from the last survey, a lot of them involved communication between employee and supervisor or employee and administrator. So I think we ought to kind of focus there, maybe get some direction from
Well,
employee on some.
And it's hard to put a handle on what triggers that. I would tell you, if you ask any of your director level staff about my communication, and they don't always know which way I'm going and what I'm doing, but I can't tell them until I know.
Exactly, I understand.
And so you know, I'm moving fast. You know, we're going through our growing pains, and it's frustrating, until even for myself to, you know, I'm trying to get things lined up and you know, make those decisions and make things happen. But you got to be agile. But I would love to be a little bit less reactive and a little bit more proactive. And someday I hope to get there. And I think that travels down, because as I pass down, you know, last minute things, you know, Danny can testify to my last minuteness. You know, and it goes all the way down there. So that falls under that communication.
Yeah, and I'm not
Under-
saying
yeah.
everybody's guilty.
Oh, no, it's
You know, it's like in the sixties, so I mean,
Yeah.
there's room for improvement.
yes,
I mean, we're not gonna be at 100%.
yeah.
But, you know, it would be nice to see that go up instead of coming.
And I think there's I think we'll get with LaCoya and figure out all of the above on ways to improve communication, and I think to dig down a little bit and what do they mean when they do that. We might need to dig out you know, is it, one of the things we heard last time we did our group discussions was the whiplash, and people came in and said, you know, I leave work on one night and I think I'm going to be coming in and doing this, and the next morning I'm doing totally something else. And that's one of those things that we've tried to do. And I strive to get more communication out, although I don't think I'm as strong as I have been on getting things out. And there's many areas that we can fall and do that. And I'll tell you pretty much lack of communication has its cost, because there's confusion and, you know, unsureness and things like that. So it's definitely a worthy goal, because things run smoother when everyone's communicating.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I want to kind of bring it back to the question that was asked just a few minutes ago about do our employees have the ability to go directly to LaCoya? And I want to just throw out a word of caution that we got to be careful about creating an avenue that would bypass the chain that we've created in Pam being the HR person for the city. I'm not saying that LaCoya and her firm are not reachable, but we've got to be careful about creating a two-headed type HR department, where now we have pivoting employees or pivoting comments made or directed to one HR versus another HR. I encourage that. You know, initially when we hired LaCoya, it was for another reason. It wasn't directly for the employees and these types of surveys. They morphed into that. But I strongly encourage that LaCoya can continue to work with Pam at the HR department here with the city, because that is the city's HR department. That is our frontline HR department. And I would just caution that we set an example or create an avenue where our city HR person is not being utilized. So I don't disagree that LaCoya shouldn't be contacted or not, but I really feel that the first director, the first response, or the first outreach should be with our city HR.
Well, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Councilman Rios, I hear your concerns, and I think that we have such a tight relationship with LaCoya, 2 years working with her. I don't see a downside if that is how someone chooses to reach out. We'd rather have them reach out through LaCoya than not reach out at all. And I think we need to get the message to the supervisors that if you know, I've talked to supervisors, and sometimes people, you know, they have concerns, but they you know, aren't comfortable you know, sharing it, and we need to encourage supervisors to say, well, you know, here, you can go this way, you can go through Pam, or you can talk to LaCoya. She's somebody that you can confident and, confidential conversation and can help facilitate whatever that need might be. So while it is a, I can see where it could go wrong, but I don't think it will here in this situation, because we've been pretty seamless, at least between the three of us and some of the directors. So
Okay,
I'm not
well,
fearful of that.
City manager, if you feel that confident, then,
Oh, and-
then I have some confidence. But
I-
again, my first thought
Yeah.
was, and LaCoya, no disrespect to you, I just feel like,
I'm thinking,
Yeah.
I just feel like, you know,
yeah,
we promote chain of command, and I think chain of command should
Yeah.
be true across the board.
And I sometimes I think having that LaCoya out there, knowing she's out there, makes it easier to decide, well, I'll just go through Pam. If it's not your only choice, if there's a variety, you can go either way. I think it gives the options. The most important thing is if people do have concerns, that they don't, they share and not just, sit silently and suffer.
Well, by no means am I asking for employees to not go anywhere.
No, I know, but
That's not what I'm insinuating here.
yeah.
I'm just promoting chain of command, just like we have encouraged all other departments to follow that suit.
And there's nothing wrong with a supervisor that, coming to one or the other to say, hey, can we do a checkup on one of their subordinates? A heads up that something, that we can do something sooner and intercede and help before it gets, before a situation gets even worse.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, I just a couple quick follow-ups just as I was listening. Some of the things that we've done 2 all hands on deck, what we call them focus groups. We did one, I can't remember as before or after, but we just did this one in, I think, January, February. So we did the first evaluation December of 2020 and the second one in early 2022. And so it's about 14 months between them, but we missed 21, it was pandemic. But some big things, we wouldn't have a high deductible healthcare option right now, which that came out a suggestion out of the focus groups, and that's led to the FSA and the HSA. I was able to learn a lot about when Councilman Leatham and council brought forward the idea of a disbursement, benefit disbursement. Timing was perfect that we can go, and we learned a lot on that, and that was helpful. We tried to do real good on the posting of the jobs, internal, external. Everybody, there's the application process. Many tweaks on hours and vacation and how we handle people's overtime and make sure that people take time out of their lives and commit additional time and work the hours and things. And we can make sure that they're compensated fairly. And we've found some holes there that we've dealt with. We're always looking for, how does this apply in the fairness issue and equity, and making sure that the opportunities are there. And it's tough because there's so many variety of departments. I would say the one thing, communications high on my list. We're still working to put together some of our training sessions that have slipped, and we're just on the edge of rolling out our performance evaluation, but we still have both supervisor training and customer service training that we need to get going. Those are just some follow-up comments. And LaCoya is always happy when I'm, she loves to hear from me, but she also knows that we talk when necessary, and sometimes we just talk for fun. So.
Koya, thank you for helping us conduct these surveys. I think they're important for our employees to understand that we do care for them. We want them to be proud to work for the city and serve our community, and that's what it's all about. They would give an environment that they're happy to work with, and I think they're very vital to us to help us improve as a city.
And we'll be doing survey number 3 coming up here, and well, not near, when the time comes.
Next year, yeah. Well, yes, I couldn't agree more. It's one of the best things you can do, yeah, for your employees in your organization. Yeah, well done.
Thank you, LaCoya.
Thank you, LaCoya.
All right. Good night.
Item D, council will receive a presentation and give possible direction regarding the fiscal year 2022-2023 general fund budget and capital improvement budget to include general fund, enterprise fund, and water infrastructure finance authority. Paul.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, let me just outline, like I say, we've been busy working through the process, and just Danny, we'll go with the initial budget presentation, the one that I sent to you after the meeting started. I'll be doing the initial presentation, highlight the general fund. We'll move to Chancey, who has wants to review a document with you that is more in her style of how she sees the budget. We have different ways of looking at it. She's very methodical and very mechanical, and I kind of picking out the things that are, as a manager, important. Thirdly, I think the WIFR program is a important topic and wraps into the CIP selection. And so then we also will talk about the CIP for general fund, CIP, water, wastewater, and then to a point WIFA. And then at the end, we'll follow up and make sure and go over direction. There's some forks in the road and direction that we want to get opinions from council. So, but we'll start with the my presentation, and who's clicking mine. Okay. Do we have that one? The WIFA? But we'll be doing I don't think you have a printed version of this, the PowerPoint that's coming up. Okay. No. So, but can you see it on the screen okay? Okay. So just some, and Chancey, are you there in the background? She's probably muted here.
I'm here.
Okay. All right. And Chancey had offered, and we had initially planned for Chancey to be here live, but I figured her time traveling was time that she couldn't be, working away on the budget, and so she is zooming in from Texas. So FY 22-23 general fund budget highlights. The revenues are after you take out for PSPRS and bed tax, our estimated sales tax this coming year, 7,565, 266. And again, all these numbers are estimates, but they may tweak, they may change a little bit.
7 million?
I'm sorry, 7,565,266. I'll slow down and communicate that. The so and that's projecting about a 2.5% actual growth. We've been on a trajectory of growth, and I think given some things that are happening, we're still waiting for the recreational marijuana to come on board, and Cal Ranch, and then there's a lot of activity in the mining industry that may bring that forward. Just for bed tax, we're estimating, and bed tax hasn't changed at all. We're looking at $237,081. I think when my first year here, we were hoping it was going to cap 100,000. So we're doing good there. Property tax right now, we're pulling the number 531,000. I believe that's going to go up when you add on new some of the new builds. That's a rough number. It'll rather grow rather than shrink on there. State collected tax. The league has tried to explain that the state is not sharing taxes with us that they have, and they're out of the goodness of their heart, but they, out of a proposition and a commitment, they collect tax on our behalf. That includes both income tax, sales tax, and transportation taxes. We're estimating this year, grand total altogether, 3,079,749, and that's a number given to us as an estimate by the League of Cities. Total ongoing revenues, combined all areas revenues, we're looking at about 14,503,433. Fund balance, this is the calculations we're still working through it. Chancey and I have been looking at different things, and I will tell you that I think every finance director and finance person has a style. Like any chef, you give the same recipe to 3 different chefs, you're going to have a real good meal, but it's going to be combined together a little differently. And so we're unpacking the information, looking at the audit, and today every hour was getting a little bit different as to where we're at. Chancey will have a number for you in her presentation. I will leave it to her to share with you that number that she has right now. Okay.
On the ongoing revenue, just a clarification, that is, what do you mean by that?
So total ongoing revenue, that is a sum total of every, all the money that we get on a yearly basis, not fund balance, not one-time money. Your budget's made up of two sections. You have those ongoing revenues that you use to pay ongoing costs, such as mainly salaries, benefits, and fuel, those things. And then you have the one-time revenues, which usually come from various sources. The bridge money is a one-time revenue. You get one lump and you build that bridge. So for me right now, we're talking about those ongoing. Now, if they're collected, budgeted, and they're not spent, they fall into the bucket and come back the next year as a one-time revenue. And a lot of time that's how we filled our bucket is by things that we budgeted and tried to accomplish, or things changed, we came in cheaper or whatever. But this council and the previous councils have been very, very strong on building fund balance, which is that one-time funds. But in this respect, we're talking about the ongoing, and but like I say, that's your operational money. Okay. Like I said, I have a little note on there. This is a draft version. Changes may take place in either direction. As we dig through and look at things, it's changing, but it seems to be staying in the same area. But when we do come back, it's getting tighter and tighter as we go. So next slide, please. So general fund update. Good. Customarily, ongoing general fund revenues are used for ongoing general fund expenses. Our FY 22-23 budget shows total increases in ongoing expenses of about 997,710. And that is, if you just look budget department by department and general fund areas, we're up 997,000, which includes all the ongoing retention costs, our efforts to bring everybody to market. It also includes the addition of 4 full-time general fund employees that are funded out of general fund, and so that's the amount that we're seeing the growth in the budget. Now we also, and one of the primary reasons that we took to increase the sales tax, and again, for every dollar we collect from residents, we collect 3 from those people who use our services. We have budgeted in this budget $554,136, which is in the general fund, because this will be an ongoing cost to fund the debt service, both interest and principal, for the 2 USDA loans we're looking for the fire station and for the ladder. Now, I don't know that, if we do get we're making the application, I think we'll probably know by, we have to, apply by September. We'll probably know by January, but there's a good chance that we'll get those loans and start, having to work with those loans, before the end of this year. We're budgeting the full amount. I think that the sooner we realize we need to live within, this is a key constraint, that we will be for the time being, seeing that 554,000 every year going to that project. And so, and that is also included in this budget coming forward.
Oh, that's the total amount for the year, 500,000, 554.
Yeah,
And that is, how many year loan is that?
Gary, is 35 for right now we're budgeting 35 for the station, and I think less for the ladder. How many years on the ladder? 25? 20?
20 years.
Yeah. Okay. And that, I think this is a doable thing. I'd rather see 30 than 40. You know, it's, so even with that, with these expenses built in, we're still projecting an additional, 1,166,383. Now, this number changes as we go back and forth, but we're still bouncing around $1 million in ongoing general fund, that will be allocated before we do the final adoption. Now, there's, so put in your head that there's about $1 million of general fund we haven't spent. The one thing we haven't tackled is assuring that we have coverage of, maintenance. Oh, and this does include roughly 200,000 for the pool for ongoing costs is built into, the department. I'll show you in a second. I have another slide. But it leaves us about $1 million to allocate in a couple of different ways. I think we need to do some investments and some staffing to make sure that we can manage and maintain the things that we've taken on. We've a lot of one-time money, a lot of amenities that we brought in, and we need to make sure that we can handle those. And then there is some upsizing that we need to do, but there's also other things that are out there, including, and so we'll have these conversations as to how to take that last $1 million and what to do with that.
Mike, go ahead.
So, 1.1 million additional
Mm-hmm.
revenues available.
That would be a subset of the 14 million in revenue. No, those are already baked in. Those are baked into the 997. I don't know if that's appropriate, but they're already built in. Okay. And then those are, I think when my next draft, I can show you that. I don't want to name names, but that's the positions. Okay. So next slide. There it is. And so by department, and this is a moving target, you know, trying to nail some of the downs, but just for simplicity, not dragging the whole big budget through you. Mayor and council, you from last year to this year, you're about $3,101 higher than you were. I don't know where that changed, and I'm not prepared to go through and dice up where this comes from. Administration, about 224,661 less than last year, but we had 2 FTEs that have moved there and switched departments. And so that kind of throws that off. Now you'll see fire is up, increase in their budget, the 562 million, no, I'm sorry, whoops, sorry, $562,416. Yeah. Sorry. Gary's got a smile. And that includes the money for the USDA. But we did have a pretty good drop in the requirements for PSPRS, and so that bringing fire to market was pretty much offset by the reduction in the in the PSPRS costs, and that goes back to council 7 years ago, 2016, starting that payment forward of paying above and beyond on our PSPRS, and so we're reaping the benefits there. So PD, we're looking at 2 additional people there, although one of them is grant funded, and one is a position that we've looped in there into this budget now, and we're considering one. We have a real strong local candidate, and so we may go forward with that one additional in PD. Magistrate, pretty stable. We're additional $19,189 in the cost for that department. Public Works is, I don't feel, we split out the cemetery and we split out engineering, and so I took some of those numbers and added them back in, although I think some of them are duplicative as to, so comparing Public Works unified and Public Works broken out, I believe we're about 346,537 in additional costs. We did bring in, put a second person in the cemetery, and we've upped that, and we'll backfill that. And again, just as in police, we need to look at Public Works, and that is a key piece and a promise to the a focus of the tax increases is other people, outside people are trusting us with their money to invest in Globe and put it under our care, and we need to make sure that we can live up to that trust and make sure we can maintain those things. And so that is in the future, in the next coming weeks. ED, Economic Development and Community Development, we're at $344,544 in increase there, that we switched 2 people out of administration, and then we have a lot more marketing and ongoing costs in there that's expanding with First Friday and the heavy and positive types of marketing that we're doing. In their museum, we did actually add a clerk in there, just because trying to keep the museum open 7 days a week during and making sure we had a situation where we were trying to in this pinch to try to hire people. We're asking people to come on and take on a job where they work every week, every weekend, 50 weekends a year. And, it takes a strong-willed person. People have done it, and, but we we're goal is to get a schedule where, my goal is have everybody at least have 1 weekend off a month. I think our retention has been problematic, and I think that's people they say they'll work every weekend, but it's a tough thing. So that we started by bringing on an extra person to make the schedules work. But boy, making schedules to cover those things is tough. Pool, I missed a 0 in there. It should be 182,900. It is not. We're not going to run that pool on 18,000 a year. Okay, so. Oops.
That changes that bottom number
Yeah.
too then.
Yeah, that changes up by about 1.7 there. Oops. Sorry about that. So it's about $180,000. So and that's including about 110,000 simply for contractual salaries. So my apologies on that. Let me try to think if I can whiz bang this real quick. Which one of my spreadsheets has that? Let me when Chancey's talking, I'll go back and fix that number and see what the real number is. And then fleet normal growth about $33,067 there, and so that is where we're at least showing the growth and meeting those goals of council. So the goal of retention, the goal of of a fire station and ladder. And the only goal we have left is the proper maintenance of the investments that people share with us. That's the third one to do. You want to hit the next slide?
So Paul, on this, I'm sorry, this number, that 1 point would change now to 1.7 million, reflects the additional projection that you had on the previous slide of 1,166,000.
Yeah, so
Is-
it would
is that-
take
is
it
that
down
the-
to a hair under 1 million,
Okay,
at least today, given all the numbers we have now.
so this is projection for the next budget year.
This is all
there-
projection, but the projection of that 1.1, which is by now going to be 950,000 or something like that. And I'll get you the real numbers. That is the headroom. That is the space we have, the flexibility to make decisions.
Okay, so, yeah, I'm just trying to understand it, but you said the budget increases, obviously, market price is almost 1 million, fire station is 500,000, and then another 1.1
And it-
million for next year projected increase in the budget for
that we-
ongoing.
We have we have about 1 million, let's just call it 1 million right now, unallocated to where we want to spend it. We may want to piggy bank it. We may want to invest it in some staff. We may want to, I mean, there's a lot of, I can't remember the third option, but there was a third one out there, but we need to decide how we want to spend that. Okay, and I would like to take some more time to bring forward those options, and we'll probably dig a little deeper into that conversation in the very near future.
Ready? Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm just gonna kind of throw this out there, because I don't know that anybody's really talked about this during budget seasons. But I think I'd like to have, or start the conversation on, not only facilitating the needs, but, I really think that we need to think and have a conversation about how we can grow our general fund as well.
Mhm.
I get, that this council has a passion for, economic development and services and goods, in which I totally am 100% agreeable with, but I think we also need to add in the conversation that what can we do to grow our general fund as well?
Well, and that will, when we look into the CIP, you'll see money in the CIP under economic development, which is the strongest, return on investment. And that is real important. But no, we're always trying to leverage, take an investment and get above and beyond back for it. But I think we have a pattern, we have a track record, and I think that's where we want to look. Council's goals, Northeast Corridor, downtown redevelopment, housing, those are all things that once we get those, as we move forward, those will benefit from the revenues and the incomes and allow us to do more. I'm trying to figure out which one of my 17 spreadsheets I had. But let me, again, I will, Mayor, I'll track down that number before the end of this presentation.
1713846.
I don't know if my spreadsheet's wrong or just my transfer's wrong, so. But, okay, so let's go back to the presentation. Next slide. So, and we've covered some of this stuff, or some of these, in various methods. I don't know that every council member has seen. I want to talk about pool costs, and that overflows into ARPA costs. Okay. The original pool costs, this is straight from the presentation that you saw when we voted for the 2.3 million. Okay, and so we just as a reminder, this is what we are purchasing. Now, on top of that, you're seeing the bathhouse, the amoeba roof, the slide, and the expanded footprint is coming from the 1.9 contract that Cobra Valley is so graciously done in tandem with our costs there. So but that 2.3 is the key number there. I will tell you, Jerry, what are we at on known change orders? 90,000 for the pool? For our contract on the pool? 91,000, okay. So, and we've kept, Jerry and staff have done a tremendous job of making sure that we didn't get swept into change order, so we have about that. So then, yes, but they're definitely, there's costs that we've taken on knowingly, and because it was a beneficial to the alternative. Okay, it's important. And then go to the next slide, but I might have them out of order there. I'll go one more. Okay, so, and I'm going out of order. I have my slide order messed up here. So now we have the updated pool spending, and so we started out with $500,000 in general fund to be spent on the pool. But when we initially had talked about that in the budget before we signed the contract, everything like that, we had built that in. We had switched that to ARPA funding because of the availability ARPA, and so this is what we have now in the way of funds that we have committed. So we have the $500,000 initially committed, the 30,000 admin contingency, 180,000 straight up ARPA. Then we have the generosity from both Freeport, 250,000, United Fund, 200,000, Arizona Complete Health, 50,000, Gila County, 100,000 in county, and United Fund for the through BHP for the splash pad. So at 1.4 there. In progress that Linda's working through with additional money from BHP for the 1.5, and then Capstone donation of 100,000, which leaves us with a shortfall of the 697,309. Now, if you switch back, we'll show how this pans out. And so this is how this looks in the way of how it's going to be paid for. With the shortfall of the 700,000, if you recall, we had also put a 750,000 of ARPA funds set aside for recreation and CIP. Okay, that remains unspent. Literally, we're only about I did build in the change orders. That's good. We've spent about 30,000 on CIP, and I think we're under 100,000 in ARPA spending. Although the disbursement will come from that also, but that'll be the next year. So we have with the money that we have and the balance we have, if we were to apply the full amount of the ARPA that it remains, and that would be represented by we got 1,226,876 is our full ARPA. If we put that together, we're at 2.6. We only need 2.3. And so with the IT for the Wi-Fi that we've spent already, and the change orders, which is built into here, we're at 2,400,000. If we apply all of that ARPA there, then we have a balance of almost 200,000 that we can carry forward. Now, I think that 200,000 will probably be used for the disbursement, because, well, it depends. If it comes out on the backside, that's sitting out there too. But by using the full ARPA to offset the shortfall in the donations. And don't get me wrong, we are blessed to have the partners that we've had and collect the money that we have. But we always knew we had that ARPA as kind of a safety net in case it didn't come. And it gave us the luxury to say, yeah, let's go out and get the donations. And Linda will tell you she's not done. and so, but we do have a pool that we are going to need to pay when it's completed. And so what I'm looking for direction from council is to, when we come back to finish the payment on the pool, that we direct that first year ARPA to go to the remaining balance, whatever that balance may be. If nothing changed, this is where we'd be at. And we still have enough ARPA with a little bit left over to take care of the pool.
Oh, what was the full ARPA funds that we received? I didn't get that.
So it's 1.226, so it's 2.4 total, the millions. This year and this budget cycle and next budget cycle, we have a grand total of 2.4 million and some change. And it must be spent by December of 2024. It's not, you can't use it for pensions. You can't use it for rebuilding your fund balance. And that's a really key thing coming up in the conversation coming up here, because it needs to be spent. We need to document how we're spending. When we first knew about the ARPA money, it had strings and many. It had those 4 areas. And when I was talking to my colleagues and city managers and finance directors, like, use it water, wastewater. Use it water, wastewater. Just, it's the easiest thing to do. And Jerry's smiling away, going water, wastewater, and John too. And so, but they took it wide open now. And any cities that the first 10 million can be considered recovery funds from the pandemic and can be used very similar to general funds, except for those 4 caveats that is strictly written out. So there's things they suggested, and then there's things that they block that you can't use it, and then there's that gray area. And now it's pretty much, for us, the first 10 million, and since we got less than 10 million, all our money can be used simply as replacement for general funds. And so it would fit into this. So what that leaves is for the remainder of the ARPA funds that we'll get this year, the 1.226, 876, that will be available for us to spend and allocate. Now, I will tell you that my thinking is, and normally, so it's, I'm sorry I'm bouncing around, but normally we do general fund, and the tightest thing in general fund, in our budget is general fund, and the tightest thing that we have is general fund CIP. We allocate all of our ongoing general fund revenues to ongoing expenses and pull our general fund CIP items from the fund balance that is built up for the unspent general funds. This year, we have that million, and I'll check on the number, that we could use to expand our staff. We can use to save it to rebuild our fund balance, or we can use that to pay the CIP. Normally, because our CIP is sitting about on the A level stuff, the must-have stuff, about 900,000. But instead of using the fund balance, instead of using the overage from our general funds ongoing to pay the CIP, and since we must spend the ARPA money before 18 months from now, the thought is that we fund the general fund CIP request that we're going to look at in a second here, at least the A's, from the ARPA money. And that still leaves, and I'm going to round it out, about, let's say 300,000 right now. Let's take that, even the pool, let's say 200,000. So that's kind of where I'm looking now. This is a lot, and I'm not laying it out the best, but I just want to kind of let you know where I'm heading and how the thought process is going. We're going to vet this a little bit better. and see if we can, Chancey's gonna help me. Chancey's a much better, communicator than I am. And so I talk to her and wave my hands a lot, and then she comes up and helps me. And you'll see, when you see her presentation versus mine, it's all one page. You'll see that, but, that's what we're looking at. And so, and that'll be part of the direction we have. So I
Well,
wanted to
Mr.
show you that, but we do, the good news is, we have the funds available this budget cycle to totally pay the 2.3 million. And so we won't carry the construction costs off.
Just to clarify, Paul, and because of the shortfall of the pool, then we're using about $1.4 million of ARPA money to pay our costs on it.
We're using 1.2.
But
But-
there's another 180,000 that you have in here.
Oh,
ARPA
then that's
fund
built in.
Contingency you have on the list too, so that's another
And-
180,000.
In actuality, there's still, when you do the math, there's still it's about $1 million. So which do you kick out? We're putting back in our original fund balance, $500,000 into the cake. And with that, with our $500,000 and the donations and the federal ARPA money, we're gonna have about 200,000 extra. And so I'd rather actually see the money come out that is, and it's fungible, and it's a, it's either gonna be 200,000 in fund balance or 200,000 in ARPA. It's probably gonna get spent pretty quick, so it doesn't really matter. But I think a fair rendition of what we're doing is, through the help of our partners, we're putting $500,000 of our money, that original CIP money we budgeted, into this pool, and then with the support of the federal government through their ARPA funds and our third-party private sector providers, and then the generosity of the hospital, we're getting a $4+ million pool, and that's leveraging funds and building a community, and doesn't even talk about the money donated, the labor and people contributing without even donating money. So questions about that discussion about using this current year ARPA to balance out the funding of the pool when we go to pay the final bill in August. Is council comfortable with that? Okay. And then, so then let's go on and think we have and you see we still have that leftover ARPA money that we'll get this year. So on next budget slide, I think this is, and one more. Okay, last slide, budget approval calendar. Again, we will be back to approve the tentative budget resolution. The tentative budget is the most legal part of the budget. It sets a maximum total of what we will spend. Okay, once you set that tentative, you can't go any higher. That won't be a problem. We kind of, right now, we have our hopes and dreams, and we're doing the whittling down process, and we'll have no trouble meeting that there. We should have traditionally a pretty tight budget by 2 weeks from now with that meeting as to where we're going, all the key decisions ready to go. Now, if there's any hanging out decisions, we still have time to move money around internally when we do the final budget adoption. But Shelley did the research on this, and so we have to post the public hearing notice for the final budget the 6th, and so 14 days, Shelley? And then you can't have a meeting in 14 days, you gotta post in 14 days. So we'll come back on July 26th for the public hearing and the budget, and adoption of the final budget and ordinance for the property tax rate adjustment, and it's holding it flat. But since the valuations go up, we take the rate down, and so we do have to adopt that final resolution, so the levy stays the same. But the levy will grow a little bit because new properties that are added onto the tax rolls, we get that benefit above our cap. But we will not be doing a truth and taxation meeting. We have no need, because we're basically holding our levy flat, and although it will apply for a couple new people. And then within 7 days of the final adoption of uh, we'll post the budget on the website. Okay, but there will be the legal budget forms, it's those legal budget forms will be posted into the newspaper during the month of, July. So, so with that, unless there's any questions, I'm gonna, check my math and, Chancey, if, I don't, your form is very informational, but we printed it off. And so mayor and council, if we can bring Chancey up and you can grab this form. I don't think that we don't have it, visually, but Chancey, do you want to put that on your screen from your end? That would probably be the easiest way, Chancey. If you can share your screen and put your, but they have printed copies. And, uh-oh. There.
I'm not going to be able to share my screen.
They have
the document. I didn't have that prepared this evening.
So whenever you're ready, Chancey. You drop off. Texas internet is not as good as Arizona internet. So, here she comes.
Oh, sorry about that, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
The room temporarily. Sorry about that. Mayor and Council, thank you for having me this evening. And Paul, I was told that the form would be handed out to the council, so I did not prepare a presentation that you had requested.
They all have in front of them.
So if you want to share a form, that's fine.
I think you guys all have they have the paper copy, so if you want to talk about it, just go ahead and verbally walk in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to thank you for having me this evening remotely. We had initially intended for me to travel up and see you in person. Fortunately, for us, that did not happen. I contracted a severe, so I'm not sharing my germs with you.
And Chancey, you're coming across a little bit garbled. And I don't know if you speak a little bit.
That's probably just me.
Okay. And speak a little bit slower and let it catch up to you. It sounds like you're underwater, that Zoom sound. So go ahead.
Yes, I apologize. I have a severe head cold, so that might just be, unfortunately, how I sound. But fortunately, I haven't traveled there and shared terms with you. So hopefully we get over this hump and move on quickly. As for the paperwork presented to you tonight, this is a meeting that really was intended to kind of move the council into the process of we're currently in to prepare this budget. I am on
hey,
information.
Chancey, you're pretty garbled. What I think we want to do is have you dial in on your cell phone, and we have a pretty good sound system that way. And I think council can, we can call you, and so that might be easier because it's not the words are you're hard to understand. The cell phone? Oh, has anybody seen the conference phone? Hey, Chancey, you there?
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
What number would you like me to call in on?
No, I know this will work, but we're.
Okay.
Okay. Well, hang on, we seem to have lost the We seem to lost the speakerphone here. Believe me, if it was a pizza, it would have been eaten.
Yeah. What-
Yeah. So, Chancey, I'm gonna, Chancey, I'm gonna give Kelly your number, so when you get a certain number.
Hi, Chancey. Hello?
Yes, thank you.
And we can hear you.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate you making those adjustments.
Yeah, no, much better.
Thank you for that. Evening, Mayor and Council. Again, my apologies for the disruption earlier. I think the presentation that Paul and I are bringing to you this evening are really just trying to inform you of where we're at in the budget preparation process. We're not completely finished, as you can tell from our presentation this evening. We still have some questions out there. We still have some ideas that we're throwing about what needs to be funded in what order and what priority. This evening, we really are trying to bring the close of fiscal year 22 to fruition so that we can find out where we're at with each one of our individual fund balances. And that's the money that at the end of June 30th, 22 will be your savings account as we move into the next fiscal budget. And what money we expect to bring in fiscal year 23 and the operational expenses that will impact the budget. From that, we're trying to ascertain what is the best course of action for our remaining revenues over expenditures, our operational money that we can invest into CIP projects or into fund savings, as council members have mentioned this evening, is a priority for the council, is to invest in the community, to grow the community, to replace aging infrastructure, but also to maintain a healthy fund balance, especially in the general fund moving forward. The paperwork before you this evening is a visualization of what that means and where we're at in the process. This evening, we're looking at specifically the general fund, excuse me, and also CIP and how that relates to CIP. As you can see right now, we are estimating $17,984,000 in general fund revenues and $16,448,000 in general fund expenditures. This is going to give you approximately, at this point, a little over 1 million, approximately 1.5 million in unallocated expenditures. We have funded CIP at $875,000 and an additional, excuse me, 2.6 million in CIP grants. While we're trying to finish out the fiscal year 22, we're really looking at some of those grant CIP activities to fund what has been funded through June and what monies we can bring in from those grants before we close out the fiscal year. That's some of the change that may affect your fund balance that the town manager was referring to. But we're also looking hard at funding some of these CIPs through grants. Jerry has brought to you several options. Paul has mentioned options in several meetings that I've attended in the background. So I know council has made mention that uh, taking care of the city is important, but also saving some of this, taking care of our fund balances. And one way I've seen that the upper management has really tried to achieve that goal in this fiscal budget presented to you tonight is to look at some funding options through grant, that's really encouraging to that end. We are still, this is malleable, and we're still moving forward. We're trying to pull these numbers together as best as possible so that when we come to you and discuss things like the pool, the wage rate salaries, you have a feel and an understanding of where we're at in the budget. What can we air quote afford, and what numbers are being presented to you that kind of give it a reference compared to the rest of the budget. So we want you to feel comfortable with the numbers, present them to you in an understandable manner, and inform you so that you can have an informed discussion and make some informed decisions this evening that will help us move forward and wrap up the budget for the end of the fiscal year and moving into fiscal year 23. Our next presentation that we give to you will have a lot more of this kind of detail in it and really map out the direction of each one of the funds. This evening is more of an information dump, but I'd be happy to answer any of the questions that you might have this evening and this information that was presented to you.
This is the path that we're going, and how Chancey looks at this holistically, and she has to make this all balanced. And so while it seems pretty daunting right now, it just shows where we're at with a lot of this. I think I wanted to share with you, just showing how Chancey operates and how the basic budget will look through the finance eyes. That's all. It's
That's all
mostly good
good.
news.
Is there any questions? Chancey, on this project or total revenues, I'm sorry, is that incorporating the 1% sales tax also?
Go ahead, Chancey.
Yes, that is correct. Yes, that is correct.
So with the 1%, we're showing an overage of about 1.5 million is what it's showing on this on the general fund.
If you move forward with your current CIP listing at 875,000, that is correct. Your 875,000 CIP represents column A on your the city manager's priority CIP priority list. And that, so you could decide how you want to move that money around. You could decide if you would like to increase CIP spending, which, you know, can be taken in several parts. It really depends on if CIP funding can be spent now when resources are scarce, if it should be spent now when resources, because they're scarce, are known to be inflated prices. If that's responsible, or if you would like to move this money into increasing your fund balance, or some various other options that I'm sure the city manager would feel comfortable discussing with you.
And Chancey, what is your projected fund balance on this one? We see some numbers at the bottom. Is that the 3 million, or is that the 3.5 or 2.9?
Yeah.
It's the 3 million?
Yeah, your
Go ahead.
currently your beginning fund balance is estimated to be 4,389,000. That's the number at the bottom that you're seeing. I understand the council feels comfortable with a contingency emergency fund of $3 million, and that's what's been set aside out of that $4 million in the gray line. That's just for your convenience and view. If you take the beginning fund balance and add in your revenue over expenditures and subtract out that $3 million contingency, you still have an unrestricted fund balance of $2.9 million at our current working, where we're at in the current working process of this budget.
Questions for Chance?
But thank you for this presentation.
Yeah,
Nice,
and-
yeah, very nice. Oh,
And, Mr. Mayor, members of council, so, like I say, Chancey's gonna hang on here because, as she said, I'm gonna move forward to the CIP and, what we in talking and I need to apologize to my staff. We had the meetings and we were gonna do the rankings. I never had a chance to circle back with the director level staff until I passed this out at the beginning of the meeting. And what I had done is break them into A, B, and C. A is absolutely we need to do them now. B is kind of on the bubble, depending on grants or something else. Some of the Bs ended up on the bubble because we may not get to them. And so it shows a priority, and then Cs are probably not likely going to happen, but if there's grant funding, we can get that. General fund, so general fund we're looking at funding As only, and if you go to the third page,
Paul, can I ask a question? I'm sorry, before you go to there.
yeah,
Uh,
go ahead.
So this chart that Chancey showed us, the 1.5 overage, does that include the payment for the new fire station, ladder truck, and the salary increases, and then the additional projection ongoing that you presented?
Yeah, that is all baked into or included in the expenditures. Salaries and benefits have been taken up, and the fire department budget has a $550,000 already in there. So those are already,
Plus an additional 875 on capital improvements and CIP money. Okay, all right, thank you.
okay. So that had to be in there. That was the core assumption. I'm sorry to answer for you, Chancellor. And so what we're recommending is on general fund CIP that we fund the $898,123 list of items. Although I will tell them to all my director staff and chiefs, if there's something that I missed or something that didn't make it into that A that they feel is crucial, let's talk. I wanted to show you the priorities, but we still have time to work around here and some flexibility, because I don't want to, just because of time constraints and communication issues, leave something that should have been included, or if there's anything they can't want to pull out and swap out or however. And that's on general fund. See, a lot of you have been in the budget cycle meetings and had heard the detailed presentation. We did, I think, 5 hours of infrastructure. So,
Don't think it was.
yeah. Okay.
Not at one time.
Yeah, but just so you know, the parks, the public work parks is part of general fund. It is not enterprise, and so that is part of the general fund, and we have some carry forwards and stuff there. And so, and as you're looking, if you see something that you think is in the wrong place, again, you let us know, and we still have time to come back. The second part on the enterprise, we have much more fund balance there. We have much more control over that. And even though it's an extensive list, we're comfortable including both A and B and the carry forward. So you're looking at about $3 million dollars in CAP water and wastewater that we will do. The C items, and there's some biggies, and I'll tell you, there's some tough stuff here. The sweeper is the one that I struggle with, and that might be another thing that we look at if there's any extra 250,000 floating around somewhere, that we look at that sweeper, because it's, Tom will tell you, it's a crucial piece of equipment. Our whole idea is that we keep downtown clean, and he uses it every day if it's running. And so I'm still not I'm not done with trying to fund that. Now, what I am leery about is any more additional. You'll see 2 pickup trucks that are in carry forward in the CIP, because we just haven't been able to get them bought last year. When we get a new finance person, whether it be Chancey or someone else, we don't know who that person in 6 months from now is going to be. And so you know, there's always that debate between lease versus buy. And I don't want to go on record right now with whether we're going to lease or buy. And PD is a little different because we already have a plan there, but we need a front end loader. Oh, we do have the backhoe, the replacement backhoe fully funded we received money. That's an insurance settlement. The front end loader and the sweeper, and there's some trucks and even an enterprise, but I don't see trying to order trucks when they're struggling to do that.
You have those too, right?
Yes, and that's because I want to list them and acknowledge them, but I don't, even with enterprise where we probably have the money, don't want to go forward at this point in time. Hey, Chancey, can you talk to council about what you've been recommending for me all along about a mid-budget review once the permanent person gets in place?
Absolutely. I think the city would really benefit for several reasons, but the city would really benefit from what is called a revised budget. It would be presented to you in pretty much the same format as your tentative budget, which is usually your more detailed presentation, and explains where you're at and why we think you're where you are and where we think you will be. And it'll take the same format and present it to you after the halfway point, which is December. So sometime in January, February, depending on what's more comfortable or expedient, the budget process will basically do a quick review and present to you any specific changes or noteworthy projections or events that have happened. For this particular fiscal year 23, I think it's important because you've had a lot of changeover in your finance department, and it's important for everyone to feel confident with the finance process, that it's transparent, and that the information I'm giving you today is accurate or relevant in 6 months. But you also have large changes in your in other aspects of your budget. Mainly and specifically that I'll mention is your city sales tax. You have several incoming businesses that may change the landscape of that. And we really, you know, while we could do our best to historically project, it is we don't really have any history to work off of. And other communities are hard to model after for rural areas. So I would really recommend bringing all this information together as best we can for the fiscal year 23 budget, tentative budget adoption process, and then go through it, revise it, refresh it, and bring it back to you again in the form of a revised budget in January or February.
So that's, like I say, that is kind of the safety net we're looking at. That we schedule that and make sure that everything we do, that we don't get too far out ahead of ourselves. You know, it's a changing world out there, and nationally, internationally. I mean, it may be that things are taking longer, supply chain may clean up, prices may go up or down. We don't know, even 6 months out, things may change. Mayor, I think Councilman Pastor has a question.
Mike, go ahead.
Department have the flooring out heater. Didn't real infrastructure amount of maintenance and
Right.
issues.
Well, and I think that we use that as a placeholder. I think the final decision, I think John and heard the comments, and we'll have to decide, you know, what that looks like. But I didn't expect staff to run out between last week and this week and rebid that. I think the amount is significant that it'll probably cover other options. And we can, if it's more, we can do an adjustment. If it's less, we can reapply the money. And I see a lot of these CIP budgets going to items that we can get going faster. You know, it may be that there's 3 on the A list that just aren't doable, and so we pull something off the B list. Councilman Rios, go ahead.
Yeah, and you know, my only comment was on past experience with pellet feeders in my business. You know, our company did invest in these pellet feed systems throughout the state. And it didn't last long before they all came out and we no longer went with pellet feed. And so it was just a recommendation to look at it. You know, obviously I don't want to direct anybody on what, you know, how to operate the system. But I did want to share that information to the department, that at least do some research on it. See if you know, maybe the systems have been upgraded in a fashion where they're no longer a maintenance issue, but the experience I had is they're high maintenance. You get uneven chlorine residuals because it's not a continual disbursement of chlorine. It just changes on you. And so that was part of the problem we had, is we could not maintain a continuous chlorine residual in the system because it would fluctuate so much. And I remember it was just a lot of cleanup, a lot of maintenance. So that was my only comment on that. Obviously, you know, we do have to chlorinate. In my opinion, gas is the best, but that's no longer an option to use gas chlorine. So the only thing that's left now is liquid. And liquid, you know, you have to maintain it as well. But again, the experience I have with liquid is it's more of a drier kind of a buildup, calcium buildup, where you just kind of ream out and clean up your fittings and things like that. But it's a dry, just clogging, if you will, and it's easier to clean up than a gummy kind of residue. So
Well, and
just a recommendation, that's all.
Mayor, members of council, the any item on the budget list by our code, any purchase we make over 25,000 needs additional council approval, and so you would, I believe it's over 25,000, you would see that come back before you, again, before it was actually bought, and I think you're you know, it was taken note of at the work group.
Yeah. Just want to share my experience, that's all.
And that's exactly the kind of, you know, if anybody sees anything on here that has a question about that, and Councilman Mayor, I think
No,
Okay.
I was talking. If I can follow through the question there? Go ahead, Fred. And this is maybe more for Jerry, but we did talk about in that those meetings we had about I can find it here, asset management plan, and that, is that what I'm seeing in these?
Yeah,
Looks like it was
it's
separated
split.
between
Yeah.
different budgets.
20% in general fund for public works, 40% in water, and 40% in wastewater, for a whole total of $100,000.
But that was the management plan that you were referring to, correct? Okay. Right, you're right, the quotation estimate.
Danny's got to get the camera on that one.
Yeah.
The and we do have the only last piece of here, and what Chancey and I had made the decision about how to handle the WIFA projects, because WIFA, again, we have a bank of WIFA projects ready to go that are far exceeding, and instead of putting them in individually, we're going to budget the WIFA money against the bank of projects. But Jerry has a very short presentation. 4 slides, Jerry? I think no, it's not 14, Jerry. You're gonna get blue flagged. I can see it. Yeah, I didn't know. Okay, so
I'll be done before you get the flag. So first of all, this list Chancey made out, I thought was a great job. So there's, I know that she still has some tweaking to do to get your real numbers, but it's a great start and a simple way to look at things. So, all right, so I'm looking for my clicker here. So I wanted to start out by going over what we've done thus far in the 2020 WIFA project on in May 26th, we presented council with a project list, which we'll bring up a little bit later. And then on the 9th of June, we finalized that project list that we sent to WIPA. On the 11th, we did a couple things. We did a notice of intent for rate increases to cover our 1.2 revenue to expenditure. We also did resolution 818, which was a debt authorization for the money that we were going to borrow from WIPA. We decided at that point to authorize up to $4 million, even though the loan was only $2 million, because we were going to do another $2 million loan the following year, which is this year. And then on the 24th of November, resolution 1824 was the loan adoption done by council. And then this year in May the 16th of 22, we staff did an initial loan application, and all that was a cursory loan application, kind of a placeholder. We have to do a lot more in order to get the loan grant. So, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. And I'm going to go to the next slide to kind of talk about. Paul wanted me to talk a little bit about the authorization and the difference there. Initially, we applied for a $2 million loan, and that's in blue. The reason I know it's in blue because Jessica wrote it here, and I'm colorblind, so I can't tell that. So and then the amount of the loan that we just applied for, did the initial is $4 million, which brings the grand total up to $6 million if we decide to do that. Okay, and I'll go over the reason why, but I wanted to go over the authorization. The authorization is in blue where we did the $4 million. We would need an additional $2 million of authorization to bring that up to $6 million. So the reason why we would do this, rather than add a couple $1 million onto our existing loan to complete some of these projects, is one, we would not get any more forgivable. It would just be an add-on to our existing where we got, I think it was it $400,000 forgivable or something like that? 350, 400,000. That would be it. Right now, WIPA has quite a bit of money from the federal government for their infrastructure program. And we believe as staff that if we apply for a new loan at this point, our forgivable amount would go up quite a bit because of the availability of the money. And we've talked to WIPA, and they kind of give us that indication, but they won't tell us. But remember, council always has the ability to say no. We don't have to do a loan. We don't, even if they come to us and say, hey, we're going to give you 50% forgivable, you can still say no. You know, we can turn it down at any point. But I think, and Chancey and I kind of part ways here, but I think this grant loan system is a way for us to get low cost money and make a major impact on our infrastructure. So any questions on this slide here? Okay. The next one, I know it's kind of small, and that's why I did the handouts and stuff, but this first slide is the primary project list that we submitted to WIPA as per the council's direction. The problem is the pricing has come in crazy. And you know, the big one is, I'm looking at the wrong page, of course, but the big one is the study. What we thought other cities got did not include the cammering, did not include the cleaning of the pipes. So when we found that out, our project went from 500,000 up to 1.3. So, but that's our complete system. That's location, condition, and anyway, quantifying everything and materials, everything with our costs. Right now, only 70% of our sewer lines, we can go out and tell you exactly where they are. We can guess it 100% of them. You know, we can go from manhole to manhole, but a lot of our sewer systems, as Freddie can probably tell you, just like water lines, don't go in a straight line. They'll bend or whatever. So you have to run a camera with the GIS up in them to actually locate them. And we're talking about condition of the line. We're talking about condition of the manholes. We're talking about all that. Oh, capacity was the one I was forgetting. But we also, if we have a new sewer connection or a new subdivision, we need to know how much capacity that line will carry. And we need to know whether we have to put a pump station in. We need to know all that. This study will tell that. But the problem is the $2 million is gone with the first two items on this. Okay, so what we have done is staff has called around and tried to get some, we waited until the prices actually stabilized, like on the piping on the first one. The initial price that we got on that was $1.8 million. And once things stabilized where people started getting subcontractors again and so forth, it's higher than it was, but it's only at $750,000. So, and these are actually numbers that we called around to get. And so our initial list has gone from 2 million up to 3.84 million. And then on the second page, these are actually the alternate projects that we submitted to WIFA. This was a total about $1.5 million, and which has gone up to a little over 2 million now. But between the two lists, we're talking about 6 million. Okay. One of the reasons we haven't been able to deliver the 2020 WIFA is because of the cost. Things are stable. Nobody wants to bid on this stuff. Perfect example is on the bridge where we couldn't get anybody to bid. And when we called around to find out why, they just flat out told us that we can't get subcontractors, we can't get help, we can't get materials. You know, if we're going to lose money, we're going to lose money in Phoenix. We're not going to lose it in Globe. So that's kind of the what we got. But things are starting to turn, and we're starting to see more contractors out bidding. And I think a lot of that has to do with not so much materials. I know James and Nat talked about materials delay, but it has to do with people going back to work. And it has to do with people getting manpower back in their workforce. And so subcontractors, we've had subcontractors that folded their doors because they couldn't get enough workforce. So hopefully that'll stabilize. So my thought is to get enough money with WIFA to do all these projects. Go ahead and do the paperwork. I mean, it's staff time, of course, but and let council make the final decision where we fall out at, whether it be, if we applied for another $4 million and got a 50% grant on that, that's $2 million off. So we need to look at that. And if it comes up to only 700,000, we at least need to look at that too. And then at that point, that's not the final say that you guys have. We say we borrow up to $4 million additionally, up to 6 million now with WIFA. Every project we bring back to you, you can say no to any project. If project A was supposed to be $1 million and it come back in at 2 million, and council doesn't believe that's a good way to spend our money, we just turn the project down. We're not going to obligate the city to anything that we don't think is a good deal. So that's my thought on the WIFA. I don't think that we should be taking all of our money out of the fund balance to do these projects. We still have wells that could go down at any point. We have aquifers that we keep having to reach further down into to get the water. So I think that's a better use. We have some sewer expansion that we're looking at different options on as well. We might need some of that fund balance for that. So That's, well, here's my last slide.
This WIFA, amount is not in the current budget then, estimation?
No, because it's you line it in as revenue and then you line it down as projects. And so Chancey will put in there, you know, the income as a revenue source, and then it'll be funded by all those items. And I know Chancey is listening, and I got Chancey and Jerry together this morning, so we kind of have a pre-discussion on this, and Chancey's always concerned about debt, about making sure that we don't go too far into and lose that ability in the future when we have a fund balance. And so she's busy working on the fund balance and seeing what is happening. I also worry about the more WIFA loans we take on, the more the 1.2 plays into our rate fees. Although, you know, you have to look at that. The fees are for the operational, but if we're sitting on the fund balance, but like Jerry says, there's things that we can do with each. What I intend to do before we wrap up the budget is kind of look at two scenarios, the Jerry scenario and a Chancey scenario. And we'll.
No, we get along good. I agree with most of the stuff she got. I think this is the one point we disagreed on today.
Chancey,
And,
you there?
Oh, yes, I'm still here.
So yeah, I think this is the only point that we disagreed on today. And my thought on that, I liken it to purchasing a vehicle. If you go into a dealership and the vehicle's $80,000 and you can't afford that, then it's, even though they give you a 0.9% interest rate, you know, but what happens if they said it's 45,000 or it's 40,000? And you need to look at that. And then you need to look at the projects to see if that's the car that you need. You know, if that's the project that you need off this list. And what I gave you today is the projects that council said we needed. It's the primary projects and the alternate projects, and that's your list.
And this is a difficult question. We don't know what the future brings. We don't know, you know, what the forgivable is going to be. We don't know if we'll have future opportunities, and we don't know what's going to break. You know, because we know that can happen. And so I think we look at it both a more aggressive WIFA and a more conservative. You know, use our fund balance, use that to buy down some projects, and then we'll take a look at them side by side and get the final direction. It'd just be a simple exercise, but I think it'll help be more enlightening than just a simple conversation like this.
And we've already pretty well missed the deadline for the September meeting. So this would be more of a November meeting. So it would be November before we even got the loan approved if we applied for it. So you know, I don't foresee a whole lot of expense next year because WIFA, even on the projects, you draw off the forgivable first. They're different than USDA. USDA makes you take all the grant money, or the grant money last anyway. So anyway, I think it's after Chancey and Paul gets done with the budget, I think it's time then to move on this if we have council's approval. So,
Freddie, you got a question?
So we will have an opportunity to hear Chancey's version, correct?
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you know, I think she'd like. I promise you that we will have two versions or two pathways for council to pick.
Okay, good.
so that would be the right way. No, I'm teasing. I'm teasing.
Mariano, go ahead.
So to reiterate, there are no penalties. There's no scoring penalty, no other side issues when you say no.
No. It you know, it's their time, but they're just like any banker when you go in and apply for a loan. If you don't take it, there's nothing they can do about it. So, but anyway, any questions?
Thank you, Jerry.
So, Mr. Mayor, the only other follow-up is I found my spreadsheet. I redid the math. I underestimated the cost of the department changes by 164,610. I did the subtraction from the 1.1 million, and it came out to what the estimated money that's still floating out there, $1,001,772. But
In
1,001,000.
comparison to what was the other number?
The other number was 1.1. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I had put in there the 18,000. So it's 18,000 from the 180,000, 160.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe have enough direction. We're going to is council. I think that the only key question is I'd love to focus the second tranche of the ARPA funds to fund the fund balance CIP as concrete things that we can, not fund balance, but the general fund CIP. Those are concrete things that we can use for that and free up and retain that 1 million for either some of the improvements we need to do, staffing additions, and or a combination of just putting it back in the fund balance. So is council agree with that strategy of utilizing that the ARPA money for general fund CIP items? About that 900,000 mark.
I would think
Mr.
so.
Mayor, members of council, that's all I have for you.
I'm just a little bit confused, when you say that, because we're talking, we may have to use some of that money for the swimming pool.
No, that's the first half. We have, so there's two 1.2 millions out there,
Okay,
2.4 total. So the money we got last year, this budget cycle, that we're going to spend definitely on the pool is the direction. That still, we have a second group of money coming in at 1.2 that we want to use to backfill our general fund CIP items, the A
list?
items that are in this list.
is that the A-list that you talk about?
Yes, because normally we'd use fund balance, but we'd rather not pull out the fund balance, whatever that amount may turn out to be,
Okay,
and then save the other floating 1 million for putting to good use.
When do we get that second payment?
It should be pretty soon. I'll have to check with the paperwork on that. Chancellor, remind me, we got to find out when we get that delivery, the transfer.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll just note to self, check on the 1.2 million.
Any other questions?
You did mention that it came early last year
Yeah, no, it did. So it
in the
should be,
fiscal year.
yeah, it should be coming. It comes about May or June. I'll have to check and see if it's, the distribution's going on. Yeah, no, there's a lot. So,
Mayor, I just would like to say, I think that sweeper truck is a priority. That's something we need to consider.
well then, and so let's try to squeeze out a sweeper. Does full council agree that sweeper should be an A?
I do. It's
Yeah.
it's a highly visible unit.
well, agreed, but if it gets used.
Oh,
Right. I mean, we have to dedicate
We do.
personnel to use it.
oh, you know, John drive himself.
I've seen it.
He's doing retro. You know. The cleanest dusting sweeper out there. All right, so we will work that into the budget, to the A.
On the bottom.
Was it part of the A-list?
We'll make it A. It's on a C right now.
C-list?
Yeah.
I lost the cost.
Two, isn't it?
Oh, 200?
Yeah, yeah, it's only 200.
Oh, then we can buy two.
No, stop.
Stop.
He's got a dump truck and a front end loader on there too, so, yeah.
If we keep going this rate, I'm going to change my argument and side with Jerry on debt.
There we go.
Any other comments, questions? Before we move on to the next subject, I just want to make a statement. I mean, I want to compliment all the hard work that's gone into this. You know, the staff, the council and these work groups.
Yeah.
Meeting. I know there's a lot of numbers in here, a lot of information, but all this has been hashed out in work groups that people have dedicated time to do. And I know we don't have nobody in the public, but maybe somebody listening on YouTube. This is a lot of work, a lot of hours that have gone into just to get here, with work groups that have been meeting, the staff. So it all makes sense in the end. I think it really has been a positive. In your presentation, Paul, it makes sense in the end.
Well, and I'm gonna take tonight off and then get ready for the 2 o'clock on Thursday is our next one, and we'll some of these we'll get some detail on how we're gonna make that work.
Well,
12 Thursday.
Oh, is it 12 or 2? 12. Okay. Oh, I just lost 2 hours. All right, so much for tonight off.
hey,
Now, Chancey, what time do my emails hit you in Texas?
3:30,
That's so you're both up.
but I'm up at 5:30, so I think it about evens out.
Don't sit in their inbox long.
and Chancey, thank you a lot for the spreadsheet. It really simplifies it and makes a lot of sense. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, good job.
Great, thank you for your time this evening.
So we'll go ahead and move on to consent calendar, and we have matters listed under the consent calendar considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion, one vote. Public hearing items are designated with an asterisk.
We'll see you later, Chancey. Go ahead, and I know it's late there right now.
Thank you all, have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Prior to consideration of the consent agenda, the mayor will ask whether any member of the public wishes to remove a public hearing item for separate consideration. Members of the council and/or staff may remove any item for separate consideration. We have item A, consideration of waiver of section 2-4-10A prior discussion rule to allow action on the balance of the consent agenda. Accounts payable, $1,000,737.26. Consideration of approval of council minutes, May 10th, 2020 meeting minutes. Anybody from the staff, council, or public want to remove any of these items for separate consideration?
Mayor, I would like to pull the accounts payable real quick, and I'll give you that one number, and then we'll go on. But go ahead and pull that, and we'll go.
Mr. Mayor, if there are no other comments or questions, I motion that we remove item 1, accounts payable, for further discussion, and approve the rest of the consent agenda as read.
Motion and second for approval of consent agenda minus item A1. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion passed.
So, Mr. Mayor, remember, go ahead and if you want to read that one item.
Yeah, it's accounts payable, $1,000,737.26.
Mr. Mayor, just, and the rest of the council, and so everybody knows, we made a payment for asphalt to Cactus Asphalt for $504,416.32. So that's why that all the accounts payable is looking like double what it normally is. That was a capital improvement project. Jerry, what kind of money was that? Was that half cent?
Half cent.
Everything. Yeah.
That was the all-in? That was the all-in? The all-in, yeah.
And it looks good.
I'd like, if I could, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead,
I'd
Freddie.
like to add, there's another high-ticket item there that, we normally wouldn't expense, but,
Which one did you, I saw something else, but I don't-
88,000 was the, fire department,
oh, okay, I didn't quite,
correct, Chief?
that's Stratton? I don't, yeah, I think Stratton renovation.
Was that the cost of the fire?
80, let me,
I
So-
saw 88 in there.
Yeah. I don't think it's that much.
Hold on, I'll find it again.
65.
We had 504,
Vendor.
416, for asphalt, and then, we had,
Oh, yeah, it was Rodriguez Roof. Yeah, it was a roofing. That's the first payments on the 3 roofs. That was fire, police, and CVS.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's half of it?
Yeah.
Wow.
You'll find that other half is in the A list of the CIP for next year. Well, that's why it's more than, usually we're about 300 to 400,000 in
Yeah.
a pay run, check run.
But it's on page 12.
Page
Oh.
12.
I had it, and
Could be Rodriguez.
yes, thank you, Jesse. Yes, was Rodriguez Construction. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 line items.
$88,365
Correct.
paid on 5/26, right?
So again, I'm glad you
Paid
pointed that
locally.
out because I was gonna pull it for those reasons
Yeah.
as well. I just thought it was important that, we let everybody know that we normally aren't authorizing this kinds of expenditures.
Well, and the expenditures come lump sum. I mean, when you see that one when we pay PSPRS and,
Right.
you know, it's like, woohoo.
So, Mr. Mayor, if there are no other comments or questions, I motion that we accept the accounts payable as presented.
Motion and second for approval of accounts payable. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion passed. New business, item 5A, discussion and consideration of the library service agreement for fiscal year 2022-2023 with the Gila County Library District in the amount of $121,900 plus $1,160 for telephone expenses for a total of $123,060 for library services and request to waive City Code 2-4-10A prior discussion rule. Rael.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council.
We should have put you first.
Yes,
That's
you're a real trooper.
okay.
Rael's a champ. She
Yeah.
sits out all the meetings. Seven person.
So it's that time of year, every year this comes around, and this year we actually got an increase in our funding for $4,760. So the amount that the county is willing to give us this year went up, which is always great to see. They are wanting us to make sure that we serve the public in its best interest, and they're willing to help us with that, with funding.
Always good news.
Any questions?
Very grateful for the county library district and that funding source, that revenue source.
So that said, Mr. Mayor, unless you have some comments? No. Okay, well, go ahead, since you're part of the library committee.
Motion that we waive City Code 24-10A, discussion rule and approve into the FY 2020. $2,100. Additional $160 in the county. Increase in funding this year.
Second.
Motion and second for approval of item 5A, new business. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstaining? Motion passed.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Rael.
Item 5B, consideration to approve contract CS-2022-0052 with Superior Tank Solutions in the amount not to exceed $245,000. This amount includes a $5,000 contingency for the rehabilitation of Hagen Tank Number 1 water storage tank located at the Hagen Tank site, funded from account number 50-80-53005, Water Contingency Reserve, and request to waive section 2-4-10A prior discussion. Jared.
Mayor, members of council, I figured out, you like me presenting because I'm always the last item. So,
You're always asking for money.
I know. So this is how this came about. Our annual inspection showed that we needed to rehab the 500,000 gallon tank. Superior Tank was already rehabbing number 2 and number 3 under contract. They offered us a huge discount to do it at the same time. And that's what you see is a $240,000 rehab with a $5,000 contingency on it. So it's a great deal. And so that would be the last of the tanks that we have to rehab too. And we're still doing our routine inspections as part of our asset management.
This amount was in the budget already for this year.
It was not. It was not in the budget, and it will be in the budget for next year. Because we will sign a contract on it, but we will not pay it until next year.
Mr. Mayor, if there are no other questions or comment, I do want to make one comment that, I'm on board with these types of projects. It protects the quality of water that we all drink and cook and bathe in. And I'm pleased to hear that, there's some further dialogue that we're talking about an asset management plan, so that we can really just put together a kind of like a strategic action plan, but really focused on infrastructure and really the quality of life that we all want, drinking potable water. So these are things that are absolutely council member. So with that, I motion to approve contract number CS 2022-0052 with Superior Tank Solution, the amount not to exceed $245,000. This amount includes a $5,000 contingency for the rehab of Hagen Tank Number 1 water storage tank located at the Hagen site, funded from account number 50-80-53005 Water Contingency Reserve, and waive the prior discussion rule.
Motion and second for approval of item 5B. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposing, nay. Any abstaining? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry.
Item 6, late agenda items.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Council, we have no related agenda items.
Call to the public, second call to the public. Do we have anybody online or on phone?
Check the email. Nope. Nothing in email.
Scheduling of meetings?
And Mr. Mayor, I believe we will not need a full budget meeting next week. We had tentatively put, on there that we would have one before the 26th or 28th. But we will not need that. We won't need that. We will not need that. No, we're making such good progress in the work sessions. Yeah. The work group. So you can clear your calendar if you'd save that.
Work group report to council? Any,
And, yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of council, so what do we have, 4 or?
4 of
We
them?
had 4 on there, and that was where this staff, and it was a long time, but I'll tell you, the staff is so grateful, and I'm so grateful that everyone took the time for public safety, for quality of life, for infrastructure, to hear out all of the requests and allowed staff to go through and speak to each of the items. If we're gonna say no to something, the least we can do is you can have a pretty good grasp of what we're saying no to, and it takes time, and staff appreciates your access. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Consideration of future agenda items. Anybody have any?
Nope.
Okay, I call a motion, do we have a motion for adjournment?
Second.
Motion and a second for adjournment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you for attending. Thank you online.